Sangi Chedan Sogi Chonam La Chanchum Ardo Dani Japso Dagi Jiji Gibi Sonam Gi Dola Binji Sangi Dubara Sangi Chedan Sogi Chonam La Chanchum Ardo Dani Japso Dagi Jiji Gibi Sonam Gi Dola Binji Sangi Dubara Jo Sangi Chedan Shanzhong Bondon Dani Jabson Jim, Dagi Jiji Gibi Sonam, Dola Benja Sangi, Dubara Jo. Maju Namba Dunya, Sinde Tamji, Pendo, Tojalana Meba, Yanda Bosula Sangi, Kumashamushi, Jini Chan Tobarsha, E Tobarsha, Tendo, and the Church Sanyam, Gulung Kunju Rambanam, Church and Julam Rambane, Chumatar, Semba Sen, Ang Semba Chave, Chuni. So then, good afternoon, good afternoon. And today we have this screen here, so this is helpful. Yes. Otherwise, without this screen, it feels a little strange, like something like a disconnect. So this is very helpful. Thank you for organizing this. And so today's topic, I think it's something like how to approach emptiness as a lay person. And of course, the text is, as you know, in praise of dependent origination, of course, by Rinpoche, Zong. And just to give a very short something like background or description, then as you are already, I think, familiar with Rinpoche's life, then Rinpoche was born in the year of the Firebird, so in 1357, and at the age of 3, then received Upasika vows from the Karmapa, I think the fourth Karmapa, Rebbe Doji. And then at the age of 7, then Rinpoche was sort of like sent away or offered to this one Lama, Choji Tunpa Rinchen, and under his guidance, and then Rinpoche, of course, received the novice vows, and then received many empowerments, mainly the solitary Vajrabharawa and Chagdor Korche. So this is, I think, one form of Vajrapani. Vajrapani, maybe great wheel, I think, Chagdor Korche. And since then, being empowered into the mandala of these two yidams, then it is said that Rinpoche never missed his sadhana practice of these two. And then later, at the age of around 16, then Rinpoche decides to go to Central Tibet to further his studies, and on the way then meets this Jiang'e Rinpoche from the Degung Geju tradition, and then under him receives many teachings. And then also during this time, then Jeremiah also learned this medicine, and not only learned the root texts by heart, but also not just the theory of medicine, Tibetan herbal medicine, but also the practice, the application. So it is said that Jeremiah was also, in a way, an accomplished physician, accomplished doctor, if you will. And then Jeremiah, of course, then gradually studies Paramita. Connected with that, of course, Abhisamaya Alamkara, and then seeing that Abhidharma is very much connected to this, then also receives commentary on Abhidharma, Kosha, and other Abhidharma texts as well, and then receives these commentaries and then does much studying. And within 2 years, so now at the age of 19, then Jeremiah has really mastered all this, all like from a theoretical perspective on Paranjaparamita and Abhidharma, and then seeing that without Madhyamaka, then there's really something like then one is really missing the essence of the Buddha's teachings. So then Jeremiah, of course, from his teacher, one of his teachers who will later play a very important role in his life, Jesu Rendawa. From him, then Jeremiah receives the commentary on Madhyamaka, and then especially Madhyamaka Avatara, the root text by, of course, Chandrakirti. And I think since this was, in a way, more or less an introduction to Madhyamaka, then Jeremiah really always bases his Madhyamaka view on Chandrakirti's view, his approach. And then after a few years, then also learns Vinaya. And during this time, then as he was receiving this commentary from one of these great eminent masters from Jormulung, Kenjen Losewa, then it is said that while he was receiving this commentary on Vinaya, he would also memorize the commentary. And he was memorizing 17 pages, not pages, but 17 leaves, because the Tibetan system, we do not, when we say, we usually count the leaves, and then we say the front part and the back part. So the pages we would call the front part and the back part, something like that. So he was memorizing 17 leaves. So is that in pages? That would be 34, I think, right? 34 pages. Yes, 34 pages of this extensive commentary on Vinaya. And by the time Jeremiah had finished by the time Jeremiah finished receiving the commentary from this Jomolung Tenjin Losewa, then Jeremiah knew even more than the teacher, and could recollect the words and then be able to give all these citations. So these are some of his sort of his background as a student, so he really was gifted. He really was gifted as a student. And then later, of course, at the age of, I think, 31, then he composes his something like commentary on Abhisamaya, Alamkara, what is the name? Setting. So the golden garland. So this is an extensive commentary, and it is something like his synthesis of Abhisamaya, Alamkara, and what are known as the 21 Indian commentaries to that root text. And then at the age of 36, then Jeremji, now having completed most of his studies, then goes on to this something like purification and hermitage, for his purification practice. And it was, I'm sure many of his teachers have encouraged him like this, but it is also said that in the biographies, in the different biographies, that it was through the, mainly through the instructions of Manjushri, through the instructions of Manjushri, that Jeremji then partakes in this, I think, 5 or 6 years of purification practice, and together with his 8 disciples, right? So it was, and it was during this time that Jeremji completed this mandala offerings. And usually nowadays we have this something like silver or copper mandalas, but Jeremji offered this mandala using like a stone base, and this stone base is still there in this area in Tibet called Belga. So and then made, I think, a few million prostrations, and then also had visions of the 35 confession Buddhas, all sort of congregating in this huge heap or cloud. So things like this. So has many kind of these visions during those years of purification, and really, and yes, interestingly, then during this purification time, then it is said that Jeremji instructed his retinue not to bring any of their like tantric scriptures, tantric sadhanas or commentaries, but really to focus on, or mainly the purification practice on Lamrim, on the graded path, on the more like the sutra, what we call the common paths, more common paths. So really to reflect on like the 4 noble truths and the 12 interlinked dependent origination, and then so on and so forth like this. So more on the common paths, because here I think the reason is very clear. It is that if we bypass these common practices and sort of then dive straight into the tantric path, then we are missing something in our practice. We are really then we end up with, in a way, then our tantric practice becomes very limited. Because we have not really sort of trained our minds. We have not really sort of fixed our patterns or our mental delusions, right? We haven't really trained our minds. So therefore, then from this very from this something like a very stressful mind uh, that hasn't been trained to a level of a certain uh, subtleness, to a certain peace, calm abiding, then it is very difficult to really bring the tantric practice to the point, to the point. So for those reasons, then Jeremy really emphasized in those during those years to really concentrate on the sutras and particularly what we call the paramita, the paramita yana, the paramita yana, the perfection. Is it the perfection? Yes, the great perfection. And then this text is something like the result of all those years of hardship and purification practice. I think Jeremy composed this at the age of 41. It is said that Jeremy once then had this dream of the five Panditas, the five Nalanda Pandits. So these five are then Nagarjuna and Nagarjuna's heart disciple Aryadeva, and then Buddha Palita, and then Chandrakirti, and then Bhavaviveka or Bhavya. So this he has this dream of these five teachers of the Madhyamika, from the Madhyamika view, who really expounded the Madhyamika view. And then one of these teachers in the dream then comes to Jiramushi and then gives him a book. And it is said that this was the commentary, Buddha Palita, Buddha Palita commentary. And in that dream, Jiramushi reads this passage, I think from this passage, which is a commentary on the 18th chapter of the root text, Zawashira, the root text by Nagarjuna, Madhyamaka, Mulla Madhyamaka Karika. So upon seeing this, then Jiramushi, when waking up, remembers these words, and at that time, then Jiramushi has a very something like a realization of dependent origination, and this from this then Jiramushi was inspired to compose these verses in praise of dependent origination. So this is something like a little background, and then as you know, something like the rest, then Jiramushi, as he in a way sort of summed up, sort of summarized his life, then Ambochashi to Mountose, Patu Shumo Tamje Tamborsha, Amar Nizim Pinto Yamsono, Pinjan Temba gave a cheto mos. So in the first stage, then really learning the sutras and the tantras, and not just using one or two texts, but really trying to learn the whole collection from all different viewpoints. And then in the middle stages, then seeing all these scriptures as not just mere sources of knowledge or for some theoretical understanding, but really seeing these scriptures as fifth instructions, as fifth instructions. And then in the end, then to put into practice, to practice these meanings, to practice the meaning day and night, and then to dedicate this to all sentient beings. So this is how Rinpoche summarizes his life. So this is like that. So in short, then, yeah, Rinpoche, as that saying goes, to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So that's really what Rinpoche did, and we don't need to go into how Rinpoche then really inspired this movement and this whole new tradition, right? There's really no need to go into that. So this is something like just a little background. And now in regard to our topic, then I thought yesterday, since we did the refuge taking yesterday, then I think from taking refuge and then coming to dependent origination, naturally there is this connection, right? There is this connection. As you know, in Acharya Nagarjuna's precious garland, then presenting these two aspects, ngonto and nyele. So ngonto is something like advancement or high rebirth, and nyele is definite good, definite goodness, something like this, these two aspects. So advancement or high rebirth, here we are talking usually either God realm or human realm. And today, for us, well, we are not in the God realm, so we have to do with the human realm. And the human realm, this fortunate human rebirth, this fortunate human existence is one thing. And then the next is what we call definite goodness, which is, of course, referring to nirvana, liberation. And Nagarjuna says, first, one has to attain advancement, high rebirth, from which then we can attain liberation, definite goodness. So in regard to this first, high rebirth, then high rebirth, what is high rebirth? Nagarjuna says, high rebirth is happiness, period. High rebirth is happiness. Happiness, this word, Tibetan word for happiness is deva. And the Tibetan word for virtue is geva. So deva and geva can be used interchangeably, right? Because happiness arises out of virtuous actions. Happiness arises out of wholesome actions, out of positive actions. So to apply this happiness, then is to really being virtuous. This is happiness in action, right? Happiness in action is our virtuous actions. That is happiness in action, or the causal advancement, or the causal happiness. And then effect is, of course, happiness itself. So then, in the Precious Garden, Nagarjuna points that there are 16 causal factors to attain this advancement, this higher rebirth, right? This higher rebirth. So what are these 16? Well, then it is the 10 virtues, right? The 10 virtues. And then plus not imbibing intoxicants, right livelihood, abandoning harm, being respectfully generous, honoring those worthy, and then love. So in the Tibetan text, it says Tsangpa, so the Brahma Viharas. So not just love, love plus the three others, right? So in that way, then love and so the four immeasurables. So the four immeasurables, the practice of the four immeasurables. So these 16 are the causal factors of attaining higher rebirth. And not only attaining higher rebirth in the future for our future lives, but also for in our current state, where we are already in this advanced state. We really are in this advanced state already, right? We have this great human mind, as we talked about yesterday. We have really this great human mind with the potential for great empathy and great imagination. And really, through our imagination, then great wisdom. And through great wisdom, then great kindness. So, being in this advanced state, these 16 causal factors are also relevant in our current lives. For example, in sustaining this advanced state of happiness, then the 10 virtues, right? And then not engaging in intoxicants, not harming others, and then honoring or rejoicing in the good actions of others, and then practicing the four immeasurables. These are ways, these are means of really not coming out of this advanced state, not losing our happiness, not losing this deep sense of calmness. Without practicing the 10 virtues, the 10 wholesome actions, the 10 positive actions, without practicing compassion, then we will face many problems, even problems that cannot be solved through material gains, through any other methods. Simply, they cannot be solved. So this can only be solved by practicing these causal factors, right? So these 16 causes, then they are so meaningful, so meaningful. We don't even have to go into future lives, Let us not even go there. Let us just think about my life, this life, even in the context of just one life, if we are to sort of think about these 16 causes, and then see how we can apply it, then it makes sense. Even for, let us not talk of one life in general, but let us break it down to just today. If I practice these 16 causes, then it is more likely that I will end the day in a more happy state, right? It is more likely. We can, or if this theory doesn't sound so sound, if this theory doesn't sound right, then of course we can of course put this theory to test, right? So we can always, I think, scale down. We can always scale down and then to test it for ourselves. Buddha Shakyamuni always encouraged to not take the teachings as the truth, as the ultimate truth, but really encouraging us to analyze his words, analyze his ideas, his suggestions, right? His advices, and then to see for oneself. This is so important, in a way. Then this is, I think, really making good use of this advanced mind that we are somehow blessed with, that we are somehow privileged enough that we have this great human mind through our karma, and how it happens. All of this, it's in a way really beyond us. How we got here, right? How we got here, it's really beyond us. So the point is, we are here. This is the point. Point is, we are already here, and now it is really the time to make good use of this. So then to sustain our happiness and to sustain sharing our happiness with others. Again, in the context of compassion practice, if we don't have something to share, if we don't have happiness to share with others, then there is no way that we can practice compassion. Compassion is not something like a, it is not like a thing. It is not like a piece of coin or a piece of paper that you can give away. It is not like that, right? You have to be in that. You have to be in compassion in order to be compassionate. So to gather to gather the joy, then through listening to the Dharma, and then, for example, in the Lamrim, talking of this wonderful, fortunate human rebirth of leisure and opportunity, how we are, how we find ourselves in this place where we have so many great qualities, and we are so privileged, and we are so fortunate. Just merely being born in the human realm is it doesn't necessarily mean that one is really in the best place to really go into self-reflection. For example, if we were born in a place of where there is so much conflict and so much uh, atrocities going around us, then I think it will be very uh, challenging for us to really reflect on Dharma or even have much time for self-reflection, right? So in many ways, then this is why we talk of not just simply the human rebirth, but also we put on this, what then we call it the fortunate human rebirth of leisure and opportunity, so which we all uh, we all have this. No, we all have this. Each of us, everybody here, we all are somehow blessed with all these qualities. So then, through that, then I think it gives like a sense of joy that we have what it takes. We have what it takes to uh, that we already have a very good base. That we already have a very good base to really share, to share our happiness, to share our um, joy. So, like this, and then um, going from that, then once we practice these 16 causal factors, then this is which in essence is the practice of compassion, which itself then is the practice of ethical conduct, in through our body, speech, and mind, ethical conduct through our body, speech, and mind. So using this, then to further, to further our this happiness. Now that we have an idea of what happiness is, now how do we overcome the challenges that are associated in this advancement stage, in this so-called higher human rebirth? Even if we may be in this human rebirth of leisure and opportunity, yet there are so many difficult moments, right? That doesn't mean having this fortunate rebirth does not mean that we are entirely free of suffering. That doesn't mean that we are entirely free of dissatisfaction, right? So then we ask this question: how to overcome this state of dissatisfaction? How do we overcome this mental state in which illusions may arise and then really sort of cause this affliction in our mind, in our minds, and then sort of takes away our joy, right? Our joy, and then gets in the way of our practice of compassion gets in the way of our relating with others, how do I navigate through these challenges, right? How do I overcome that? So then to look for a solution, then to study our mind, to study how the afflictions they rise, and then the Buddha said all these other afflictions, they are in one way or another, they are all connected to the three root mind poisons, right? And if we analyze, then more or less we can sort of try to link, oh, this kind of emotion that I had today, it seems it's somehow connected more with this kind of like anger arising out of insecurity. And then this emotion that I had is really connected with this very kind of like desire that's really holding onto the object. You know, it's not letting go. It's not simply letting go, but sort of dwelling in the past, or sort of dwelling in the past, or just is stuck with this one image, one fabricated image, right? So if we put this kind of self analysis and analyzing the mind and being mindful of our mind, or simply through introspection, just being aware of our mind, how we think, then we see that they are all in one way or another connected with the three mind poisons, and specifically what we call ignorance, avidya. And ignorance doesn't simply mean not knowing anything, but it is really here ignorance, avidya, not knowing, really refers to grasping at the self, right? Grasping at the self, what we call self-grasping. So grasping at the self. And what is self? Self here is simply a word that is referring to intrinsic existence, right? So there is this grasping that, oh, there is this cup out here, or there is this beautiful object here, right? And really holding on to that. So this is self-grasping, apprehending this fabricated object. So then, in order to overcome this ignorance, then what we call shunyata, you know, this word shunyata, sometimes translated as emptiness, and or nothingness, or voidness. There are different terms used, but the point is the same, is that it is referring to the lack of true existence. It is all referring to the lack of true existence, right? So this lack of true existence is very much connected with what we call dependent arising, dependent origination. And dependent origination, then, as you know, is is used as the reasoning for why phenomena lack this true existence. Okay, so I think now we can go with this and do the past. In praise of dependent origination, Namo Guru Manju Koshaya. So this is paying homage to Manjushri, Manju Kosha. So Jeremiah considers Manjushri as one of his gurus. So Guru Manju Kosha, and Namo is the Tibetan word for Namo is Chaktsel. And Chaktsel, this word, it has this meaning, something like, I strive, I wish for the qualities that you have, right? So this is the meaning of paying homage. So when we pay homage to the Buddha, then we are essentially wishing for the qualities of the Buddha. We are essentially then wishing for the Buddha's qualities. So then Manju Shri, since this text is the topic, the subject matter is emptiness, dependent arising, emptiness. Therefore, then this is connected with the Abhidharma, from the three Pitakas, from the three Pitaka. And in Tibet before, then this king, I think Rinpoche, during his time, then he made this, because before that there were many translators, and they had some translators were using this term, others were using that term, like we talked about. Some translators prefer emptiness, others say nothingness, others say voidness. So sometimes if you use too many different terms, then sometimes it creates some kind of, confusion, something like this. So during this king's time, then he invited many Lotsawas, translators. Lotsawa means, I think, something like eyes of the world, Lotsawa. So great scholars were invited, and after much discussion, then they really standardized all these terms, and then because we have so many volumes in the sutra collection, and also in the translated commentaries of those sutras, I think over 200, and then about 100 volumes from the Buddha's teachings, and then 200 from the commentaries, various commentaries. So then one amendment that was made was, if this, so according to which commentary or sutra that it falls into, whichever category of these three Pithakas, then the translator would then what we say Durcha. So the translator's homage is 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 then was then established, So if it so since this is in the since this is connected with Abhidharma, so then naturally the translator's object of homage would be Manjushri, because Abhidharma Kosha sutras, then they deal with uh, Vipassana from the three higher trainings. They deal, they, the topic is more related to Vipassana, insight, wisdom, and Manjushri being the wisdom of the Buddhas. Then they made this rule. So this is, in some commentaries, it is mentioned that Jeremji offers this homage to Manjushri according to the translator's homage, something like this. But I think it's also due to Jeremji's personal connection with Manjushri that Jeremji also then makes this homage. And now beginning with the first verse, he who speaks on the basis of seeing, this makes him a knower and teacher unexcelled. I bow to you, O Conqueror, you who saw Tibetan origination and taught it. So then this is paying homage to the Buddha, and according to the topic of this text. And in the different texts, then we have different ways in how the homage is offered to the Buddhas. But in this context, then the homage is offered to the Buddha from the point of the Buddha being the teacher who shares Tibetan origination. So from that viewpoint, then Jeremji offers this homage. So this word conqueror, Tibetan word gyalwa, conqueror, or this Tibetan word gyalwa means the one who has conquered or a victor. So this is the one who is victorious against something like the battle against the four maras. So this is like something like a poetic way of explaining something. But the point is that the Buddha has overcome the four maras. So therefore, the conqueror, the victor. So this is referring to the Buddha's qualities of having overcome obscurations, right? So something like pointing to his qualities of cessation, so more like from that point. And then he who speaks on the basis of seeing makes him a knower and teacher unexcelled. Of course, this is referring to the Buddha's qualities of realization, of seeing dependent arising emptiness as it is. So this verse then offers this homage to the Buddha by way of being the great, excellent teacher who shares his seeing of dependent origination. And this way of paying homage is said to be something like the best way. And when we say best, then it is really, I think, for our benefit in a way, because dependent arising is something that is also beneficial to us as well, right? So, and through dependent arising emptiness, then it is possible to then overcome all these conceptual thoughts, all these mental delusions. Okay, so this is verse 1, and now with the second verse, whatever degenerations there are in the world, the root of all these is ignorance. You taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo this ignorance. So then this is the reason for why pay homage to the Buddha by way of seeing dependent origination. It is precisely for this reason here that all the degenerations and the elaborations of our mind poisons, and then just as it is mentioned in Chandrakirti's Madhyamagavatara, that all of our something like degenerations of our afflictions, that they all arise from ignorance, and the Buddha taught that through seeing this dependent origination of emptiness, that is emptiness, dependent origination, that is emptiness, then one will undo this ignorance. Verse 3, so how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this part of dependent origination is the essential point of your teaching? So this is something like, it's a what do you call that? Rhetoric? Rhetoric? Yes, rhetoric. So this is, I think, a rhetoric. And but definitely not sarcasm. I don't think so. But this is very nice. So this verse 3, it's self-explanatory. Then verse 4, this being so, who will find, O Savior, a more wonderful way to praise you than for having taught this origination through dependence. Verse 5, whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. What excellent instruction can there be more amazing than this proclamation? So this is referring to the Buddha's own, in Buddha's own words, that whatever arises out of causes and conditions are devoid of intrinsic existence. So this, for example, in this so this, I forgot the name. I don't know how to say in English or Sanskrit, I'm sorry. But anyhow, there's one sutra that was requested by one king of the Nagas, Matuba. His name in Tibetan we say Matuba. So from that sutra, then more or less, then it is the same as these first two lines. Whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. Verse 6. Shall I just continue with the verses, or shall we have like a short, take a break from this monologue, or like a one-man show, and then have like a interaction part? I think I'm getting lots of yeses on the interaction part. Okay, okay. So then, yes, the mic, please.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your teachings. Before any questions come, maybe I'd like to make a request to have the oral transmission of the dependent origination mantra.
Yes, so maybe yes, so from tomorrow, I will first read the Tibetan verse followed by the English verse. I think then that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rinpoche. Thank you for wonderful teachings. Based on my limited understanding, to perceive emptiness, one has to go beyond the gross mind, conceptual mind, into the subtle mind. And we learn, and then we contemplate, and then we meditate. So the paradox in your previous teaching is that the paradox is that we have to go past the conceptual mind, the gross mind, in order to enter the subtle mind. So, for example, for this concept of dependent origination, how do we actually take it from a contemplation into meditation? And then how do we actually know that in the meditation, we are really actually in the subtle mind and not a false sense of the gross mind that is telling us things during the meditation?
Oh, yes. For knowing emptiness, I don't think it is the case that one has to know it with a subtle mind. Of course, we have what we call like a inferential knowledge of emptiness. This is again at a coarse mind level. So when we talk of, I think, subtleness, were you saying in the context of like IS yoga tantric practice? Oh, conceptual. Okay. So even that, yes, even that, then inferential knowledge of emptiness is still on the conceptual level, right? It's still on the conceptual level. And then after this inferential knowledge, then to sustain that knowledge, and then to combine that knowledge, still conceptual, with calm abiding, right? And gradually bringing that in the context of calm abiding practice. So combining both is together, again, still at the conceptual level, and then even developing even further into vipassana, again, the knowledge of emptiness in vipassana practice, at the actual practice of vipassana, in that state, the first state is, of course, conceptual. It's conceptual. So then the non-conceptual, how to make that jump, right? This has always been something not so clear. It is in the texts, it is usually explained, and then eventually, like something like this happens, right? But it doesn't really go into such great detail. It is like when we have a conceptual understanding of something, the more we hold onto that knowledge, this concept, more we hold onto it, and the more we go into that, then naturally the mental image also becomes clearer. The mental image. And in the non-conceptual state, there is no mental image. So that is the challenge. For some of these other practices, then I think from first developing something like a theoretical understanding, and then to inferential knowledge, and then going to the karma abiding through these different stages, and then with vipassana, what I think we have essentially been doing is really making the mind more calm. Even though they all have been conceptual to up till now, up to this point, still in terms of holding on to the object, that mind, it's not so tight. We are just it's calm. It's getting calmer, right? It's getting calmer, and there isn't this kind of like tightness anymore. That tightness has now been replaced with pliancy, with this kind of suppleness, right? There is this almost like this, it's almost effortless. So we are going through all this process, right? But still it's conceptual. It's still conceptual. So you're right. Without developing palm abiding and going through vipassana, there is no way that we can go from this theoretical understanding, or let's say even in a very good scenario, even like an inferential knowledge of shunyata, we cannot then go directly from there into the non-conceptual realization of shunyata. There is no way. So we have to really work with the mind to make it calm and get all that tightness to do away with that, with laxity and this really sort of what we call like distractions, right? Distractions, and then once we overcome this too, then also to, in a way, to loosen our minds, to loosen our minds. And then going through all those conceptual states, then in the text, it says that there are something like what we call obscuration, obscuring factors, right? Obstructing factors, I think. Obstructing factors. So these are mostly in the form of imprints. Imprints. We have this in our minds, in our mind stream that interfere in our that interferes in coming to this non-conceptual realization. So by engaging in these meditation practices, and also, so this would be, of course, what we call during the session practice, and then between sessions, then again, the practice of accumulating merit, of course, by purifying, and then engaging in purifying and really other perfections, the other gone beyond practices. By engaging in all of that, then at some point, when the practitioner is in this very high level of conceptual realization of shunyata, then I think that happens, right? The non-conceptual awareness arises. But this doesn't come with any kind of like announcements, It's I think really like something like in the moment, right? It just happens. It just happens. As long as all the causes are created, as long as all the causes and the conditions are created, then it just happens. It simply happens like that. That's how I like to think of that. Yes. Think. Oh, oh. If you have a follow-up, please. Ah, ah, oh. But this is very difficult. This is very difficult. This is a very difficult question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche, for your explanation. I think just now you mentioned purifications, and earlier on when you were talking about J. Rinpoche's life, right? He was doing purifications, and you were also sharing that you want to do the purifications before one gets the full impact of the tantric practice, right? But may I understand in today's age, then we seem to be privileged to get the tantric initiation without having to certify on the form, I have done so many prostrations and so on and so forth. May we have your guidance on this?
Yes. I think there are different approaches. Of course, for receiving empowerments, purifications are in a way not absolutely necessary. They are not necessary to having In fact, there is no order. It really depends on the individual. Some individuals, they like to first engage in the mindful practices and then receive the empowerments and sadhanas and then go straight into what we call a long-term retreat like that. And usually for just receiving the empowerments, it doesn't mention in the commentaries that one has to accomplish the preliminary practices first. So here, preliminary practices, then something like this 100,000 100 syllables and purification, mandala offerings, prostrations, and refuge and bodhicitta, all 100,000 or 400,000. So none of these are considered prerequisites. Having said that, of course, for receiving like a fully fledged empowerments, then of course having some kind of experience in the common practices, this is very much that is part of the prerequisite, right? So just to put it in a very, to really summarize, then for example, in the three principal aspects, right? Renunciation, bodhicitta, and the view of emptiness. So these three, for example, having a good understanding and also practicing this, to your ability, to the best of one's ability, and then having a sincere motivation to receiving empowerment, of course. So those are part of the prerequisites. Those would be the prerequisites. So there are different ways, and this is, I think, a good thing is that there isn't only just one way, but there are really different ways, and it is really up to you or the practitioner, however you would like to do. Then, of course, under the guidance of someone with, if possible, preferably under the guidance of someone who has that prior experience, then is naturally helpful, right? So something like that, yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rinpoche. Thank you for delivering the Dharma just now. I am new to practicing the way, so I just like to ask a question about emptiness. From my limited, simplistic understanding, would you say that, or would I be correct to see that a very basic approach or a very primary approach of attaining eventual emptiness is by probably letting go of your false sense of self? That's one. And eventual attainment of acknowledging that things are impermanence. That means the law of impermanence. That means these are one of the two factors that can help us basic to eventually reach the goal of emptiness. Would you see, or
Yes.
any other way that we can?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. I agree. Letting go of this sense of self and then reflecting on impermanence. By these two, then one will eventually come to the realization of emptiness. of Shunyata. I agree. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going up to the second floor where we have a question from Section.
Good afternoon, Rinpoche. Thank you for your teaching. As a newbie also of Buddhist learning, I'm just kind of like a bit concerned. I mean, like I'm a bit stuck at this idea, especially since the very first verse in Praise of Dependent arising about how this idea about seeing dependent origination, the idea of seeing. So does it just bring across to my mind, maybe a limited mind, that it seems as though dependent arising, or maybe in a way emptiness is a thing that I can see. So is the word seeing used in a literal sense, or is it more inferring to the idea of perception? That's my question.
Oh, thank you. Dependent origination and or emptiness and emptiness or and emptiness. This is everywhere in our lives. Emptiness is a reality, just as dependent origination is a reality. And all the things that we see are originating by way of depending on causes and conditions. All the things that we come into contact with are empty of this true existence. In one, what is this? This Heart Sutra commentary by Taranatha, he gives this example of a person suffering from jaundice, right? Jaundice. So then I think they get some kind of like a yellow tint, right? So they get this vision, like a yellow tint vision. So when this person who suffers from jaundice and has this symptom, looks at a white conch shell, then actually sees a yellow conch shell, right? But this white conch shell, is it not the yellow conch shell that this person is seeing? It is. Yet the person does not see the white conch shell. So it is something like that. Is that through what we call our ignorance, through this projecting this true existence onto all the objects that we come into contact with, and even though they are empty, they are of an empty nature, that they are of dependent arising nature, we don't see them as they are, but we see them as we wish for them to be, something like that. So this is where we are now, and from this state, then we have to somehow work with this new concept, right, of emptiness, of dependent origination, and then try to then bring that more into our experience, more into our minds. So I think with this, then thank you all so very much, and I wish everyone a good rest, a good rest. So thank you. So then please dedication, please.
功德回向文，文殊师利勇猛智，普贤慧行亦复然。我今回向诸善根，随彼一切常修学，三世诸佛所称叹，如是最胜诸大愿。我今回向诸善根，未得普贤殊胜行，愿诸众行善，福慧习缘善，得福智长流，行诸法素物，菩提心妙宝，未生者愿生，已生勿退减，辗转益增胜。Merit dedication prayers. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samanta Bhadra too, all these merits now I dedicate to train and follow in their footsteps. As the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I dedicate all these roots of virtue for all beings to perfect good action. May all sentient beings perfect the accumulation of wisdom and merit through the blessings of this practice. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.